A single bus ride could be your last. The vehicles are traps. The passengers are liars. And the most terrifying part is not the kidnapping, it's discovering the face behind it. Welcome to Ajinde, where going home is no longer a guarantee. You're watching African Tales Magic, bringing timeless African tales to your screen. Hit that subscribe button and never miss a story. Thank you. In the busy city of Lagos, there is a town called Ajinde. For a long time, Ajinde was a good place to live. The market was always full of people buying and selling. The streets were filled with sounds of laughter and talking. But recently, a dark shadow fell over the town. People were disappearing. They were being kidnapped. This became a huge problem for everyone who lived there. Parents were afraid for their children. They no longer let them play outside after school. People were afraid to travel alone, especially at night. The police worked hard, holding meetings and driving around more often. But they could not stop it. The kidnappers were like ghosts. The kidnappers had a clever and scary trick. They used public buses called danfo, which everyone used every day. They would pretend to be normal passengers. When the bus is full of people, one of them would spray special gas into the air. At the same time, they would cover their noses with gas masks. The gas made victims fall asleep instantly. Then, the kidnappers would quickly pull down the bus curtains so no one could see inside. They would drive away to their hiding place, a secret building where they kept their victims. When the victims woke up, they found themselves in a dark and dirty room. They would cry and beg for freedom, but it was of no use. A powerful man would come and look at them. He would point at the ones he needed for his evil plans. Those people were taken away and no one ever saw them again. The people of Ajinde were no longer happy. They were living in fear. One hot afternoon, the sun was burning in the sky. A young woman named Ifoma was closing a small shop. She was a fashion designer. She had been sewing clothes for customers since early morning. Her back ached from bending over sewing machine. Her fingers were sore from pushing needles through thick clothes. She was very tired. All she wanted was to go home, eat a warm meal and rest. She walked to the bus stop, her feet dragging. She waited for a bus going to her area, Alakoko. But bus after bus passed by, already full of people. She stood and waited for 1 whole hour. Her feet hurt, and she felt so sleepy she could barely keep her eyes open. Finally, she saw a bus coming. It had some empty seats. The conductor was hanging out the door shouting, Alakuko, Alakuko. Ifoma felt a wave of relief. She quickly got into the bus and found a seat. She looked at other passengers. She saw an old man sleeping in his seat, his head nodding. She saw a young woman holding a tiny sleepy baby close to her chest. She saw a young boy in a blue and white school uniform looking out at the window. It looked like a normal, safe bus. She leaned her head against the window, finally relaxing. The bus started moving. They were halfway to Alakuko when something strange happened. The old man who was sleeping suddenly sat upright. The woman with the baby put the baby down, and the baby didn't make a sound. The schoolboy turned from the window. In one synchronized movement, they all pulled out black gas masks and covered their faces. Ifoma's eyes widened in shock. Her heart started pounding. Before she could scream, one of them sprayed a gas into the bus. Ifoma tried to hold her breath, but it was too late. A sweet chemical smell filled her nose. Her head felt dizzy, and the world started spinning. Everything went black. The bus driver quickly pulled down the curtains. He made a sharp turn onto a small rough road, driving away from the main road and heading to the kidnappers' secret hideout. In another part of Lagos, far from the fear in Ajinde, was a very big and expensive private school called the Elite High School. High walls and a strong iron gate surrounded the school. Inside, it was like a different world. There were beautiful green gardens with colorful flowers. There was a huge blue swimming pool. The classrooms were bright and airy, equipped with the latest computers and smart whiteboards. It was a paradise for children from rich and powerful families. Here, the problems of Ajinde felt like a story from a faraway land. In the senior secondary class, SS3, there was a boy named Stephen. Stephen was very handsome, with a bright smile that made people like him instantly. He was the star of the school's football team and the fastest runner in athletics. All the students knew him and many wanted to be his friend. He was like a prince in the school. Stephen liked a girl in his class named Sandra. Sandra was very beautiful and kind. She always had a nice word for everyone. All the boys admired her, but she only had eyes for Stephen. They were often seen talking and smiling together between classes. But Stephen had a big problem. He was stubborn and loved to party more than he loved his studies. One night, his mother was waiting for him in the living room. She caught him sneaking back into the house at 2 a.m. "Stephen!" she shouted, her voice tight with worry and anger. "Where have you been? I have been calling your phone." "Sorry, Mom, it was silent," Stephen lied, not looking her in the eye. "I pray you don't get into trouble with this behavior." "Why are you like this?" she asked, her voice becoming sad. "These parties will not help your future." Stephen always apologized. "I'm sorry, Mom. I promise I won't do it again." But he always did. He loved the phone and the attention too much. Sandra's life was completely different. Her father, Chief Nelson, loved her more than anything in the world. He was a very rich and important man. He had given the school so much money that the new library was named after him. Everyone in the city knew him as a great philanthropist, a person who gives a lot of money to help others. But at home, he was just a loving and very overprotective father. Sandra was his only child, and he treated her like a precious jewel. She had everything she wanted, except freedom. The final year at the elite high school was designed to separate the ordinary from the exceptional. As a crucial criteria for graduation, every SS3 student was required to partner with a classmate to conceive, design, and execute an innovative scientific project. The school's grand prize for the top three projects wasn't just a trophy, it was prestige, a guaranteed scholarship mention, and the admiration of the entire school. It was a challenge that could define a student's future. When the pairing list was put on the notice board, everyone rushed to see who their partner was. It was a moment of excitement and worry. Stephen pushed through the crowd, his friends following him. He found his name and saw the name next to it. His partner was Joshua. "Oh no," Stephen groaned, slapping his forehead. "I am paired with Joshua." Some students nearby heard him and laughed. "Ha ha, Stephen, you were paired with that weirdo," one boy said. "Good luck with that," another shouted. Joshua was standing at the back of the crowd. He heard the laughter and his heart sank. He was a quiet boy who kept to himself. He loved science and technology and spent his free time reading about computers or building small gadgets in his room. He wasn't good at sports or parties, so he often ate his lunch alone. He felt lonely most of the time, but he was very, very smart and creative. Later that day, Joshua found Stephen by his locker. Joshua was nervous but tried to be friendly. "Hi, Stephen. I'm so excited to work with you," Joshua said with a small smile. "I have an idea for our project. I call it Locate Me." Stephen was looking at his phones, testing a friend. He didn't even look up. Okay, let's just get this over with," he said, sounding bored. Joshua continued, his voice full of passion. It's a small tracking device that can be hidden inside a ring or an earring. It uses GPS, like on your phone, to track a person's location on a map. I've been working on the idea for a while. If we finish it, we could win the science fair. It could even help people who get lost. Stephen finally looked up from his phone and laughed. A tracking ring? A big thing for me? Or for you, bro? He pointed to his own chest. I am already big. I don't need a science project to be popular. He laughed again, closed his locker and walked away, leaving Joshua standing alone in the hallway. Before we dive back in, make sure to subscribe to African Tales Magic. More powerful tales await. Now let's return back to the story. Weeks passed. Joshua did almost all the work on the Locate Me project. He spent long hours in the computer lab and in his room at home, soldering tiny wires and writing code. His desk was a mess of computer parts and tools. Whenever he tried to meet Stephen to show him the progress, Stephen would always make an excuse. I have football practice, Stephen would say. I have to meet my friends, was another excuse. Sorry, I'm busy today, he said once while walking towards the sports centers with his football buddies. Joshua always saw Stephen at the sports center or the social center, laughing, playing video games and hanging out with his popular friends. It was clear Stephen was not interested in the project at all. Joshua felt frustrated, but he didn't give up. He believed in his invention. One day, Joshua waited for Stephen after football practice. Stephen was tired and sweaty and did not look happy to see him. Stephen, please, Joshua said, holding out a small silver-colored ring. I have finished the first version of Locate Me. Our teacher, Mr. Richard, helped me put the computer chip inside this ring. He said it's a brilliant idea. Stephen wiped the sweat from his forehead, not even looking at the ring. With this ring on, Joshua explained, it sends a signal to a special program on my computer. We can see your exact location on a map. We need someone to wear it for 2 weeks to test if it works properly. Can you please help us? Can you wear this ring? Stephen sighed loudly. He was not interested, but he thought it would be the easiest way to get Joshua to stop bothering him. Okay, fine. If all I have to do is wear this ugly ring, no problem. He snatched the ring from Joshua's hand and put it on his finger. Happy now? He asked. Then he turned, picked up his bag and left without another word. Joshua felt a little sad, but he was also hopeful. The most important test of his project could finally begin. A big announcement was made all over Ajinde and the surrounding areas. The famous Ajinde Fest Carnival was coming. And this year, the biggest music stars in Nigeria, Wizkid, Davido and Burna Boy would be performing live. The whole school was talking about it for days. The excitement was everywhere. That evening, Stephen was with his friend under a big tree in the schoolyard. Did you hear? Wizkid and Davido will be at the carnival, one friend said, shaking Stephen's shoulders. Not just them. I heard Burna Boy too, another shouted, jumping up and down. Stephen screamed with excitement. I can't wait. I'll be there for sure. Nothing will stop me. One of his friends looked worried. But it's a night event. It will finish very late. My parents will never allow me to go out that late. Stephen laughed confidently. That's your problem. Nothing can stop me from attending. I will ask Sandra to go with me. The next day, Stephen met Sandra at her locker. Sandra, you have to come to the Ajinde Fest with me. All the biggest stars will be there. It will be the best night of our lives. Sandra shook her head immediately. Stephen, you know I can't. My father will never ever allow me. You know how protective he is. He will think it's too dangerous. Stephen smiled his charming smile. So? You don't have to tell him. We can go secretly. He will never know. It will be so much fun, just you and me. Sandra hesitated. She was a good girl and never disobeyed her father. But the thought of seeing her favorite musicians live, of dancing under the stars with Stephen, was very tempting. She imagined the music, the lights, the fun. After much persuasion, she finally agreed. Okay, Stephen, I'll go with you, but we have to be very careful. Stephen was very happy. I can't wait, he said, his eyes shining with excitement. The night of the carnival finally arrived. The air was filled with anticipation. In the evening, Stephen told his mother he would be very busy in his room studying and wouldn't want to be disturbed. Few minutes later, he sneaked out of the house when she was in the kitchen. Sandra's heart was beating fast. She told her father she had a headache and was going to bed early. Then she quietly went to the housemaid and the security guard at the gate. She gave each of them some money. Please, she whispered, don't tell my father he went out. I'll be back before he knows. They agreed and she left the big, silent house. They met at a dark street corner, their hearts pounding with nervous excitement. Together, they joined the river of people flowing towards the carnival. The carnival was amazing. It was a world of color and sound. Bright neon lights flashed everywhere. The smell of suya, roasted corn, and akara filled the air. Thousands of people danced and sang. When Wizkid came on stage, the crowd went wide, screaming his name. Stephen and Sandra danced and sang along to every song, forgetting all their worries. They felt free and happy. For a few hours, it was the best time of their lives. But soon, it was past midnight. The music stopped and the lights began to turn off. Sandra, we should go home now, Stephen said, noticing the time. Sandra agreed. The fun was over and she was starting to feel very nervous about her father finding out. They walked to the main road. It was chaos. Hundreds of people were also trying to find a ride home. They saw taxis and buses, but every single one was already full. No one stopped for them. The crowd slowly disappeared until they were almost alone in the dark roadside. Sandra hugged herself, feeling cold and scared. Stephen, what are we going to do? It's so late. My dad will kill me if he finds out. Just then, a single bus slowed down near them. It was an old yellow danfo. The conductor leaned out. Where to? He asked, his voice low. Roland Avenue, Stephen shouted, feeling relieved. Yes, we are going there. Get in, the conductor said, opening the door. Sandra felt a huge wave of relief. Finally, thank God, she said, almost crying. They climbed into the bus. It was dimly lit inside by a single wick bulb. They paid their fare and found a seat near the back. They looked at other passengers. There was a man reading a newspaper. A woman with a headscarf was looking out the window, her face in the shadow. Another man was listening to music with big headphones. It looked perfectly normal and safe. Stephen and Sandra sat down and started talking quietly about the fantastic party, completely unaware of the danger they were in. They did not notice the woman looking out the window was not really looking at anything. They did not notice the man with the headphones had placed them over his ears but not plugged into anything. They did not see the driver glance at them in his rearview mirror with a cold and hard look. Suddenly, the bus became very quiet. Too quiet. The man with the newspaper slowly put it down. The woman turned from the window. The man took off his headphone. In one quick, smooth practice movement, they all pulled out black gas masks from their bags and covered their faces. Stephen saw it first from the corner of his eyes. His blood ran cold. Sandra! Before he could finish his sentence, a cloud of white gas shot out from a canister and filled the bus. Stephen tried to reach for Sandra, but his arms felt like heavy wood. He tried to shout, but no sound came out. Sandra's eyes were wide with terror for one single second. She saw Stephen's hand reaching for her before everything faded. They both fell into a deep, unnatural sleep, their bodies slumping in the seats. The bus driver quickly pulled down the curtains, blocking the windows. He made a sharp turn onto a small rough road, leaving the bright lights of the main road behind. The bus sped off into the dark, quiet night, heading towards the secret kidnapping coven. And just like that, the city swallowed them whole. Stephen and Sandra were gone, their joyful night silenced by a single hiss of gas. Stephen's mother believed he was studying quietly in his room. Sandra's father, Chief Nelson, trusted that his precious daughter was safe in her bed, nursing a simple headache. To the world, they had simply vanished. No struggle, no scream, no trace. The kidnappers had perfected their craft, leaving behind no witnesses and no trail, or so they thought. Will this be the end of Stephen and Sandra? Find out in the concluding parts of The Kidnappers of Ajinde, where no secrets stayed buried and no predator remains unseen. Thank you for watching.